Before beginning our program this evening, I would like to acknowledge, in gratitude to the Indigenous people on whose traditional territories I live, Anishinaabeg, Haudenosaunee, Huron-Wendat, and Mississauga of New Credit in Tikaronto, Treaty 13. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Please mute your screens and be aware that we are recording this presentation. My name is Barbara Kochberg, and I would like to welcome you here this evening and thank you for joining us as we look forward to and prepare for Tu B'Shvat this coming Monday. Jonah Simcha Chaim Muskat Brown, our speaker tonight, has just written a book, Expanding Potential, Journeying Beyond Who We Think We Are, which pulls from ideas in psychology and human development, as well as deep Hasidic teachings. Expanding Potential looks at each of the Jewish holidays and how they can help us actualize different aspects of our innate potentials, both as human beings and as Jews. He focuses on human potential, personal and collective growth, and whichever holiday is approaching. We want to thank Karen Bernstein for suggesting that Jonah reach out to us. And we also want to share with you that his grandparents, Jack and Charlotte Muskat, have been longstanding members of Beth David. Jonah also grew up in this shul. Jonah is an educator, a social worker, and a freelance author from Toronto. He strives to empower others to be present in the here and now, while also looking beyond what lies in front of them, to the individuals they can become and to the realities they can create. He believes that there are always new aspects of ourselves that we can discover, and he encourages curiosity, creativity, and courage. Jonah draws inspiration from the vast sea of Hasidic wisdom, as well as the many works of psychology and human development to unearth the inherent worth in each individual, and encourages them to empower themselves to reach beyond any limitations that others place on them, including their own perceived confinements. He has just led a group of adult learners through Israel, and he enjoys being creative. He is a rebel against words like normal, impossible, and failure. Jonah can be reached at j.muskatbrown, and Muskat with a K, muskatbrown@gmail.com. And we can also share the link to his book for you to explore further. And we will put those up in the chat box for you to see. Rebecca will do that for us, and thank you so much. There you go. So if you want to be able to contact Jonah and also anything regarding his book, there are the two sites for you to use. Welcome, Jonah, and please explain to us now how to have the courage to grow.
Thanks so much, friends. It's really a privilege to be back at Beth David. I've been grown up in the shul, having my bar mitzvah here. Being inspired by Judaism and then coming full circle to come back in a slightly different role at this time as an educator. Just for those who are not as familiar with Zoom, there's the option to mute or unmute yourself if you would like to share something or ask a question. As well, there is an option on the bottom under reactions to raise your hand. If you want to, raise it, you can. But there's an actual raise your hand button that allows the co-host to see who has a question. As well, lastly, you can put your questions into the chat box, and we will monitor that as well. So, friends, thank you so much for coming together to learn tonight. In preparation for Tu B'Shvat, the New Year, the trees. I want to start with a short video, open mic poetry, to get our minds and juices flowing, and then we're going to talk about human potential, and then transition into Tu B'Shvat and how we could use Tu B'Shvat as a springboard to explore, discover our own human potential. So I'm going to share my screen right now, and hopefully there will be no technological complications. Share screen. And if anyone cannot hear or see, you can let me know. All right.
We humans can learn a lot from trees. I wouldn't be surprised if someone out there disagrees, but before you Homo sapiens proudly shout that you've got it all figured out, not to put your species' survival tactics in doubt, but when's the last time you've seen a person live to be 5,000 years old? Or made a home where it's minus 70 degrees cold and 130 degrees warm? Have you ever stood your ground through a flood or a tropical storm? So if you want the secret to how to grow and transform, look no further than how these plants form. Lay down roots, deeper than your boots. Plant them in the values, the family, the friends that you treasure. They will keep you steadfast against the windy weather of cultural pressure and appeals to short-term pleasure. Plant them somewhere hidden where they are unseen. Who you are cannot be described in a public profile or a meme. On the other extreme, don't pretend that you will remain with family or a friend if you constantly fight, confront, and offend. So if we remain rigid and grounded on one end, then when we outwardly extend, let our branches easily bend. Let's talk about how we grow. And some of these lessons are obvious, but we forget that we know. Like the fact that real growth is really, really slow. That can't be measured in minutes or hours or even days. How we feel like we're often going backwards or sideways. Even weeks and months may feel like a maze. But stand right here after 1 year and see what patience brings. I guarantee you, look inside and you will count up your rings. Some trees grow tall in a perfect line. Others are crooked and curved but still look sublime. Some may suffer scars or get choked by a vine. They may lose leaves and their branches may splinter. But I'm telling you, there can be no spring that did not first go through winter. There can be no sapling that grows until a life-giving seed had to first decompose. That's how the circle of life goes. So take some time, sit in your local forest, listen to the leaves rustle their quiet chorus, realize that it's not just food and water that help us grow right, because sometimes all we need is light. But most important, see what it means to live, that no matter what you have, you should give. From your leaves to your roots, if you have beautiful flowers, if you have delicious fruits, if you have room for others that you can provide, for the birds to build nests and the bees for their hive, even if all you have to give is some shade, be like the trees and share the gifts that you've made. And before I'm dismissed as another environmentalist, let me say this, that I think everyone sees the needs for saving the trees, whether it's for climate change or simply so we can all breathe. But more than for our lungs, more than for the forest creatures, we need trees, because trees are our greatest teachers.
All right, friends, we're back. So hopefully that is shared some ideas and got some thoughts flowing about growth to which trees, nature. And I want to ask you, I know most of you have your cameras off, that's okay. To do an experiment, I want you to point to yourself. If you want to turn your camera on, you may, otherwise do it. Okay, so some people are pointing to the screen, others are pointing to the heart, others are pointing, I don't know where. I've done this with hundreds of people, students, children, adults, teens, and most people point to the heart. And what happens if, God forbid, our heart's not working the way it needs to, and we need heart surgery? So we find the donor, we get a transplant, everything's going well, and I ask you again to point to your heart, to point to yourself. Are you going to point to your heart? You're functioning, you're living, everything is working, you're breathing, but someone else's heart is beating inside of yours. Probably won't point to your heart. So maybe you'll point to your head, your thoughts, like the Paul Scripture says, we are where our thoughts are. But what happens if our thoughts are not ours, or what if our cognitive abilities are not maybe where they could be, or we're a little bit older and our mind is not where it used to be when we were younger? Would you still point to your brain? Probably not. Maybe a finger, a shoulder, an arm, a leg, something, a piece of us. But again, God forbid we have to have those pieces amputated. We're still us. So if we're not our heart, we're not our brain, we're not our body parts, what are we? Or who are we? In Judaism, we call that the neshama, the soul. That we have a body, we have a heart, we have a brain, we have lots of physical elements that make us who we are. But if we lose those, or they don't work as well as they could, or they work in different ways, we're still us. And I think that that's the key to discussing human potential, exploring human potential. And if we look in the dictionary defines human potential in 3 ways. A, it existing a possibility, such as potential goodness. Number 2, expressing possibility, such as it might rain, or something that can develop or become actual, such as potential for danger. And Aristotle, one of the founding fathers of Greek philosophy, student of Plato, ancient Greece, defines potential as the ability to become more than what we are right now, or more than what we're supposed to be. So if we're going to become an artist or a doctor or a lawyer, whoever we're going to become, reaching our potential is becoming more of that thing, more of that person. So maybe we could say, psychological wise, that potential is the result of our parents or community or school. And we know in psychology that human identity is very much constructed by our external influences. Our parents, our schools, our grandparents, our communities. Maybe we were blessed to grow up with good parents, supportive parents. We went to good schools. We lived in healthy, vibrant communities. Not all of us have. And what if potential did not have the beginning? What if it was not like a skill that we could learn, but it was part of who we are? And its end was somewhere long into the future. And essentially, if we want to define potential, we see that it's the unknown. It's the piece of us that we don't know exists yet. The pieces of us that we could develop over time, and that we can't always realize right now. And we said, unlike a skill that we could learn or that we could be taught, our own potential lies within us already. It's already there. We may need to actualize it. We may need to work towards manifesting it, but it's part of who we are. And one important point about potential is that it's unique to each of us. That we each have our own potential that we need to nurture. And if we try to develop Sarah's potential or David's potential or Amy's potential, that we're essentially becoming that person and we're not becoming ourselves. We're not becoming all that we can be. So the question is, who are you right now? Beneath all those external voices and expectations of people telling you who you are, who you should be, who you can be, what you can and what you cannot do. If you're comfortable, close your eyes, ask yourself to vision your ideal self, visualize who you are when it's just you. And ask yourself, who do you want to become regardless of all those external voices, of everything else that everyone thinks you're capable of? You can open your eyes now, those of you that close your eyes. And I don't want answers right now, but I want you to think about that tonight, tomorrow, the next month, next year. And who are you when no one's looking? Who do you want to become? And what choices you need to make to get there, step by step, day by day. And to transition a little bit into the human potential under the lens of Judaism, I want you to imagine 3,500 years ago, we're all standing at the foot of Mount Sinai, or sitting or camping, whatever we're doing there. And the entire Jewish people is unified under Mount Sinai. And God, through Moses, is about to give the Torah to the Jewish people for the first time. And we know that the first of anything, the beginning of anything, sets the tone of what's to come, encapsulates the entire essence of that thing, right? The title of a book or the opening chapter of a novel, the opening scene of a movie. It's going to determine whether we continue reading or we close the book, continue watching or shut it off. What should the first mitzvah of Judaism be? What should encapsulate all of Judaism? Perhaps you could say that it's Shabbat, right? The Torah tells us, "Bein you bein Israel oti le'olam." The Shabbat is the eternal entity between God and the Jewish people. They can never be removed or taken away. But it's not Shabbat. Maybe we could say that the first mitzvah should be Talmud Torah, to learning, Jewish education. And we know that there's no Jewish education, there's no Jewish continuity. But it's not Talmud Torah. Or maybe something else. We could go through the whole list of 613. The first mitzvah is Birkat HaChodesh, the sanctification of the new moon, the new month, and thereby establishing the calendar, the Jewish calendar, according to the waxing and the waning of the moon. Why? And more so, we go even deeper that first mitzvah was actually given before Mount Sinai, when we were still in Egypt. So essentially, the essence of Judaism is the new moon. And what's so special about the new moon? What does it teach us about potential? And to answer this, I want to refer to three Hasidic ideas. The first in the Sefer, in the book Netiva Shalom, the Shalom Rebbe, Shalom Noach Berezovsky, was born in 1911 in Bernovich. Passed away in 2000 in Jerusalem. He was the previous Shalom Rebbe. He was very influential in building Shalom Chassidut after the Holocaust. And he made Aliyah to Israel in 1935, became the Rosh Yeshiva, the head of the school, the yeshiva in Tel Aviv. And in 1941, he moved to Jerusalem and he opened up the Shalom Yeshiva, which still stands today. And he asks us, if you remember the Hanukkah story, the Greeks and the Jews, and the Greeks initially banned 3 mitzvahs: Shabbat, Brit Milah, circumcision, and Rosh Chodesh, the new month, the new moon. Why? And he teaches that just as the moon waxes and wanes, so too do we as the people wax and wane. Some days, some years, some generations, everything is going well for us. Other days or other months, other years, we are living in oppression, persecution, we're about to be annihilated. And just when you think it's game over, just when you think that we're done, there's a revival, a rebirth. And just as we go through waxing and waning cycles as a people, as a nation, so too as individuals. Some days we feel our best self, and other days we feel like it's hard to get out of bed. And just when we get comfortable in something or a particular way of living, we change. Because the essence of Judaism, like the moon, it's not to stay stagnant, not to stay the same. Just because we do something this way doesn't mean we always have to. We need to evolve, we need to change, we need to grow. And from there, I want to move to Breslov, Rabbi Nachman and Rabbi Natan. And Rabbi Nachman was born in 1772 in Mitsburg, Ukraine, passed away in 1810 in Breslov. And he focused on taking the deep Kabbalistic and Hasidic teachings and making them simple, usually in story form, making Judaism very approachable to every person. And he lived a very, very difficult life. Lots of opposition. And some of his key teachings are Emunah, faith, never giving up, seeing the good in everything, and not being afraid. And his teachings are primarily recorded through his student, Rabbi Natan Nemrov. And he was really influential in mobilizing progressive Chassidut after Rabbi Nachman passed away. And he teaches that the Jewish people count according to the sun, according to the moon, and not the sun, because the sun represents clarity, consistency, predictability. It's reality that we can see on the surface, what finite human eyes could see. The moon, on the other hand, is innovation, spontaneous living, creativity, sometimes confusion, darkness, but also renewal. And we know in Judaism that there is a written Torah and the oral Torah. And the sun is that written Torah, where everything is clearly spelled out in the verses. And the oral tradition is that confusion, where the sages are grappling back and forth, arguing with each other. What's right, this one, all the back and forth debates. But if we look at Jewish history, it's the oral tradition that has kept us surviving as people, not the written one. That dialogue, that constant unknown, that constant discovery of what is lying beneath the surface of that written Torah. And he explains that the tzaddikim, the righteous individuals, have this ability to push away, push aside everything that they know and experiencing it as if it's the first time that they've heard it. And if we think about it, it's actually pretty smart. We're saying, how many weeks we go through Shabbat every week? Every 7 days, it's the same Shabbat. 3 times a day, we have the same Shmona Esrei, same prayers, 3 times the same text. Every year, every week, we go through the same parsha, week, year after year. And Judaism or holiness is the ability to go through the same thing, experience the same experience, hear the same idea, but go deeper. And to grow from it, to expand it. And finally, we've got Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach. He was born and raised in Berlin in 1925, passed away in New York in 1944. He studied at various yeshivot, both in America and in Israel. And he was very influential in reviving Jewish music, Jewish Torah after the Holocaust. He was very involved in the hippie movement in the 60s and 70s. And he was constantly touring, sharing his music and teaching Torah and Chassidut, both to Jews and non-Jews, and trying to inspire and empower anyone he met. And regarding the new moon, the new month, teaches that Moses was confused as to how this new moon was supposed to happen. What was it supposed to look like? How was he supposed to know when this new moon was in the sky so that they should establish a Jewish calendar according to the new moon? So he says, God, what am I supposed to do? So God says, I'll show you an image. When it looks like this, that's what the new moon is. And you should make a blessing on the new moon and establish that new month. And it wasn't a full moon, it was a sliver. Because holiness in Judaism is not the full, total, final product, but it's a sliver. It's looking at the potential of something even before it's finalized, and then sanctifying that. And our surface vision, what we can see on the surface is only so much, right? We can only see what our human eye or what our minds can perceive. But there's so much goodness buried beneath that surface. So much holiness that we haven't yet realized. When we tap into the new month, the new moon, we can unearth some of that holiness bit by bit, sliver by sliver. We could suffer our friends. Are there any questions or comments before we transition into Tu B'Shvat? All right, I'm not seeing any hands up. I'm not seeing anything in the chat, so we'll move on. The Mishnah Rosh Hashanah tells us that there are 4 New Years in the Jewish calendar. The first of Nisan, the New Year for the kings. The first of Elul is the first of Elul is the New Year for animal types. The first of Tishrei, Rosh Hashanah, is the yearly calendar, the yearly New Year, the New Year for the years. And the 15th of Shvat, Tu B'Shvat, is the New Year for the trees. But there's a question, friends, that we celebrate the New Year for the trees in the winter. Doesn't make any sense. You would expect the New Year for the trees to be in the springtime when everything is blossoming and flowers are sprouting and it's warm outside. What are we doing? And if we were each supposed to cultivate God's garden and turn this reality into the Garden of Eden, why not do it when it's more operable to plant, to harvest? And yes, I know some people have accustomed to plant trees in the Holy Land, Tu B'Shvat, which is very nice. But for us, those of us living in Canada or America or wherever else we live, where this morning was -6 or whatever it was, can't plant trees. And to appreciate Tu B'Shvat, we have to ask another question. I want you to imagine your ideal reality. Who is in it? Where is it? What sounds or smells are there? What does your personal paradise look like? And the Rebbe Rayatz, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schnitzen, asks us to imagine a perfect world, a space in which all of reality exists in total harmony, where there's total unity amongst all of creation. He was born in 1880 in the town of Lubavitch, passed away in 1950 in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. He was the 6th Lubavitch Rebbe, and he faced Tsarist Russia, communism, America's melting pot. A lot of oppression and hostility towards his teachings and his efforts to promote Judaism. He was arrested and he ultimately built up the Lubavitch Chabad in America after the Holocaust. And his final discourse, his final speech, if you will, final teaching was Bati Legani. And there's a verse in the Song of Songs that we sing that Bati Legani Khantikala, that God is telling the Jewish people, I've come to my garden, my wife, my bride, my sister. And he explains that God is referring to his garden, this world. And he teaches, I'm not going to go through the whole idea in depth because it's very Kabbalistic and complex. Those of you that want to take a look, you could do so on the source sheet. He explains that God initially dwelled down here in this finite reality. And then we had Adam and Chava, Adam and Eve, and they made a mistake. They ate from the tree that they were not supposed to. And that pushed God one rung out. Cain and Abel. Also, Cain murdered his brother Abel, pushed God another level. Enosh is the generation of the flood, another level. Enosh, another level. 7 levels away from this reality, God was forced out. And it wasn't until Abraham came along, Abraham and Sarah, that brought God one level one rung back in. Isaac and Rebecca brought God one back in. Isaac and Rebecca, Jacob, Rachel, Leah brought God one back in. Finally, Moses, the seventh from Abraham, brought God back to this reality fully, the way that he initially was when they built the tabernacle in the desert, and then eventually the Beit HaMikdash, the holy temple. And he explains that despite whatever we think our nature is, we could use ourselves, our talents, our abilities to overdrive our nature. By working on ourselves, we could bring godliness and holiness back into this reality. That how many of us think of ourselves as incapable or not religious enough, or not worthy enough, or not holy enough, or whatever it is. But when we work on ourselves, when we live the fullest as we can, using all our abilities for goodness, we bring God, we build that garden so that God can once again say, I've come into my garden. And essentially, we are each a miniature tabernacle. And God wants to dwell within us. Sometimes, being human, our external manifestations don't always match our internal core. Who we are inside does not always come out in the nicest way, shape, or form. And it's easy to feel inspired when we can see the finish line. When we're, at an event and the crowds are screaming our name, we feel good and we run that final mile the best that we can. But sometimes real growth is when we dig deep and we take those small steps, the first steps to get there. The to be but is the courage to begin training, even before we lace up our shoes, or whatever it is that we're doing. It's the courage to believe in ourselves. And even when it's cold outside, even when it's snowing and the ground is frozen, to believe that we can grow, that we're worthy of growing. So we think of Tu B'Shvat as an opportunity to celebrate trees, celebrate nature. Many have the custom to donate money to the Holy Land, to plant a tree in the Holy Land. It's very nice. Where did we get this idea? The book of Deuteronomy tells us, for the human being is like unto a tree in the field. That just like trees grow, Tu B'Shvat's celebration of our growth as individuals, as humans. And each of us is like into a tree because we each have roots, branches, leaves, and fruit. Tu B'Shvat is when we press pause on our growth. And we examine, we analyze whether our roots are planted in healthy places that can help us grow into our fullest selves, healthy and fully, and bear fruit. And if not, maybe we need to uproot and replant ourselves. Whatever, we all have goals and dreams and aspirations. If we don't take the time to press pause, reflect, turn inwards, and make sure that we are growing in the most healthy ways, in the most healthy places, we'll never get to our destination, our goal, our dream. Our sages tell us that the finite universe, the world, is divided up into thirds. We know that there are the society in Judaism has 7 millennia. And just like Shabbat is 7th day of the week, there's 6 work days and then 7. So too is there 6,000 work years, so to speak. And then the 7th, Shabbat, where the universe starts all over again. The first 2,000 years are categorized as chaos. The second 2,000 years are categorized as Torah. And the third 2,000 years are categorized as the Messianic era, which we're in right now. And I want to learn together the idea from the Shem Shmuel, Rabbi Shmuel Bernstein, the second Shkotrov Rebbe. He was born in Poland in 1855, passed away in 1927. He was the son of the famed Avnei Nazar, the Rebbe of Shkotrov, Rabbi Avram, and his teachings blended philosophical and ethical themes in Torah. He pulls from Torah, Medrash, Talmud, Halacha, constitute all facets of Jewish learning into one. And this 9-volume set of books is organized according to the Parsha, but not by Parsha. It's by year. So all his teachings on the Parsha Bereshit are included in that, and Parsha, etc. And he has a very lengthy discourse over here, which we're not going to go into. If you, again, anyone who wants to look into it themselves, you can look on the source sheets. But he compares his 3,000, he compares the three-phase 6,000 year cycle into the Jewish calendar. And we said the first 2,000 years of this cycle are the years of chaos. Second 2,000 years of the universe are Torah. And the third set of 2,000 years are the Messianic era. And if we look at the calendar, from Tishrei until Tevet is the years of chaos. Right before Tishvat. And this is analogous to a child beginning to grow and develop, bit by bit, mitzvah by mitzvah. We're testing the waters. We're learning how to walk, to run, we're growing. And any of those who have children or who have had children who are very young know that life can sometimes be very chaotic. And then we have the years, those are the months of Shvat until Iyar. And these are our adolescent and our adult years. We're not chaotic as we used to be, where we are really trying to decide for ourselves who we are, what we're doing in life. And we begin to infuse meaning into our growth, like adolescents do. Try and decide who we are, what we want to do, and then we actually start living life. And finally, from Sivan into Elul, we have the years of the Messianic era, which is old age, where we've lived our full lives, we've done everything that we could, and we are now in retirement or enjoying all that we've worked towards. At Passover is that ultimate redemption, right? And that redemption starts in Tu B'Shvat. When we had the vision of the aspiration of what freedom looks like. Well, we all know, Passover is the celebration of freedom. We go out of Egypt, we are free, we are no longer in slavery. We know what it looks like. We have the matzah, we have the marrow, we have all that, the whole Seder. But that starts right now. The sap within our trees has started to generate, and we begin taking gradual steps towards our own goals, our personal redemptions, right? We're supposed to each view ourselves as if we have personally left Egypt in each generation. And we start to take those steps onto Mishvat to liberate ourselves from our own slaveries. And it's easy to get caught up in the redemption of Passover and that Messianic era. But the Shem Shmuel cautions that Messianic era is only as good as what we invest in during our middle years, right? Those who are in retirement or those who are enjoying the fruits of the labor know that you get what you invest in, right? If you work hard in life and you infuse meaning into your lives, you can enjoy those into retirement. If you maybe don't make the best choices and you do whatever you do, then your retirement is maybe not going to be all that it could be. And even though we might think that the Messianic era is what we want, it's the ultimate aspiration, he cautions us that those are actually the most boring years, because we can't work towards ourselves anymore. We are who we are. We've done what we've done. We've worked. We put in all the efforts and all the time and the energy that we could in our youth, in our adolescence, and our adulthood, and now we are doing whatever we're doing. The real work happens during the months of Shvat to ER, from Tu B'Shvat onwards. And we might try and skip steps. We might try and get to that ultimate final redemption, that Messianic era, but we won't be able to appreciate it as much as if we actually work towards getting there. We put the effort in, we take step by step and not just jump ahead. Growth is gradual, it's a gradual process. And we each need to give ourselves time to grow and to develop. Whether anyone who exercises or anyone who trains for anything, works on a project or anything, if we don't appreciate the time and the effort that we put in and allow ourselves to grow gradually, to warm up, to build up, we'll either burn out or that project will not materialize. So I want to end with a final idea, a final blessing, that there is a debate in the Gemara, in the oral tradition, between Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai as to when Tu B'Shvat is. Right, we said, the Mishnah says it's the 15th of Shvat, which is Monday in the calendar this year, is Monday. But there's also an opinion that it's the first of Shvat, which was 11 days ago. What's going on? Is it the first of Shvat or the 15th? We know in the Gemara that anytime that there is a debate between Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai, we go in accordance with Beit Hillel, because Beit Shammai was able to give Beit Shammai saw reality for its ideal way, how things should be perfectly, when everything is working exactly how it's supposed to. And he gave rulings in accordance with the ideal reality. Beit Hillel, on the other hand, understood that we need to be compassionate, both to others and ourselves. We have to realize that we are human beings, we live in a finite universe, and it's not always so easy to live perfect lives. So we have to factor in that human component. So the halakha is always the way that we practice Jewish life is always according to Beit Hillel and not Beit Shammai. Interesting to note, when the Messiah comes, we will actually switch to practicing Judaism according to Beit Shammai, but that's for another time. So what are they arguing about? What's the first and 15th? The debate really is whether we count 4 months from Rosh Hashanah or 4 months from Sukkot. On Rosh Hashanah, Rosh Hashanah is known as the Day of Judgment. It's when all the rain for the whole year is judged. And we know sap comes from rain, and sap produces growth in trees, and that's where fruit comes from and leaves and all that stuff. So that happens on Rosh Hashanah. On Sukkot, all the rain for the year is finally judged. So the beginning of the judgment process begins on Rosh Hashanah, and it's finalized on Sukkot. Well, we have the prayer for rain, Tefillah Hashem. And with that in mind, we're mindful that Beit Hillel is compassion, Beit Shammai is reality for all that could be. And so do we count 4 months from the start of the judgment or 4 months from the end of the judgment? Beit Shammai says, Beit Hillel says we have to wait till the final judgment, Sukkot, and count 4 months from Sukkot because we need to factor in Teshuvah. We need to factor in growth. We need to factor in that we need to give ourselves time to work on ourselves. If we judge ourselves right away on Rosh Hashanah, it's too harsh, it's too severe. We need time to chill out a bit, to take into account our humanness. So wait till after Sukkot, and then count 4 months from there. Beit Shammai says no. Believe in that first judgment on Rosh Hashanah and count 4 months. That there's no reason to wait for the 15th. There's no reason to wait for the whole Teshuvah process. Believe in yourselves. Believe in who you are. Believe in your reign. Believe in yourself. Believe that you have everything that you need. That you need to be your fullest self to grow into a beautiful tree. Into a beautiful tree at the beginning of the process. We don't need any more time. We don't need any more, what's the word? We don't need to push it off any longer. Believe in yourself from the beginning. Beit Hillel said, no, wait, give time. Take your time to rush into it, whatever. And my bracha, my blessing is that we each realize that we each have the courage to see who we truly are from the onset. Not to wait for the Teshuvah process, not to wait for this, not to wait for that, not to wait for other people to tell us when we're ready or how we're ready, what we need to be doing or what we can or cannot be doing. Believe in the journey, believe in yourself, believe that you have everything that you need within you to grow. We don't need to wait for that final judgment of the rain to realize our sap is already generating. And Passover, Pesach, maybe 2 months away from now. And we may not be able to see that finish line. We may not be able to see the hummus and the cleaning and the maror and all that stuff. We may not be able to see redemption just yet. But we each can begin to grow, even though we don't exactly know how it turned out. Even though the ground is frozen and there's no buds on the trees and it's minus 10 degrees outside, we can still grow. We're each worthy of growing. And with that, I open up the floor to any questions, comments, anything from the Chevra over here. Just to add that those that do want to purchase copies of the book, my email is in the chat as well. You can see behind me on the screen, there are 3 links to, thank you, Ethan. There are 3 links to where you could purchase the book. I'm told Amazon.com is the cheapest online option, but there's also Feldheim and Muskat Press as well, that the book is in all Jewish bookstores in Toronto, including other bits, Miriam's, Israeli Source, Israel's. And with that, I open up the floor to any questions, comments, thoughts. Anybody have anything to share or anything? Yes, I see a hand up.
First of all, that was very, very, very interesting, Jonah. I ordered the book this morning, so I don't know how long it takes to come, but I hope it comes quickly. So for a person that wants to grow, and so it sounds like at the end you were talking more from the Shammai point of view, to believe in it.
Yes.
So if that's true, so what would you say for an everyday person? What's the first thing a person that wants to grow can do, should do, can do? The very first thing.
The first thing is to try to show up, to lace up our shoes, even though we don't feel that, we don't feel like exercising the other day, or just to show up into, we all have plans for ourselves, and we all have goals, and we all have things that we want to achieve. And sometimes that shopping list can get very, very overwhelming. So if we have a shopping list of, all the steps that we need to take, don't look at step number 10. Look at step number 1.
It also, the point you were making is not to try not to let other people define us, to define
Yes.
ourselves, not to wait for someone else to say who you are, how you are, well, but to actually try to get rid of that noise and
Exactly.
listen to what we ourselves want, feel, think, and who we want to be.
Yes,
Without
for
the
sure.
world
And
telling us.
don't wait for permission to be yourself. Don't wait for permission to work on your dreams and your aspirations. And obviously reach out to those who, can support you in getting there, but all the other voices of doubts and whatever,
Well,
it's hard to tune them out. But
yes, it's always hard. But I guess one other question I had was when you talk about the Messianic era, which is
Yes.
what I guess I'm in, and we kind of have to, it sounds like more like, yes, we can hopefully enjoy the fruits of our labor and all that we've done in our lives to come to this point. But it sounded more like we have to accept sort of things as they are. But why? I still want to grow. I still want to change. And I think I'm definitely in that Messianic, era. So maybe you can clarify, what you meant by that.
sure, I think we said at the beginning, I'm not sure if you're here or not, that age is only a number. That when with seniorhood
True.
it's a mind, it's a construct, right? And we're as young as we live, right? For some of us,
Oh.
that is, an older. Sorry, for some of us, that's a younger biological age, or for others, that is a older biological age. As long as we are living youthfully and we are investing in ourselves and we're trying to accomplish whatever we can accomplish, we should do it gesund, right? And as you said, we have to accept and appreciate that we can't always do everything the same way that we always could have, but that doesn't mean that we can't do it or enjoy it in a different way, right? So if our bodies aren't cooperating the way that they used to when we were 20 or whatever it is, then find an alternative.
Yes,
or-
I'm very familiar with that.
Yes.
Yes. I'm in the age of the body, not exactly doing what it did before. Yes.
It's actually there's a beautiful idea that every morning the first thing that we do, even before we get out of bed, before we go to the bathroom, before we brush our teeth, before we do anything, we say Matani.
Yes.
And it's an expression of gratitude that the last words, Rabba Munaseka, that how great is your faith in me, and not my faith in God, but God's faith in me.
Yeah.
That sometimes, many times, we all believe in ourselves. We all think we're capable. But the very fact that we wake up that morning is a indicator, a very clear indicator that someone needs us here. And there's something that we can accomplish today that nobody else can. And sometimes we know what that thing is that we should be accomplishing or should be working on. Sometimes it's not so clear.
That's
But
a
I think
powerful
that as
thought.
you've seen that, it's okay that things are not so clear. That's where growth happens.
Yeah. No, it's a powerful thought. Very powerful. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Are there any other questions or comments? I'm not sure if there's a timer on this.
No, you're
call
doing
in,
well. You're doing well. If there are no more questions, Jonah, I want to thank you so much for your love of nature and how important it is to us, for recognizing the potential that each of us has, for acknowledging our ability to grow, and for encouraging us to continue to do so, and for giving us the courage to change, to develop, and to become our best self. And we wish you well, and thank you so much for sharing your important ideas with us, and just take care, and all the very, very best.
Amen, amen. Thank you so much for the opportunity to
Thank
learn
you.
together. Shabbat
Thank
shalom,
you so much.
friends.
Shabbat
Oh,
shalom.
and
That was
Shabbat
lovely.
Shalom, yes.
Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom.
shalom.
And
Chag
Chag Sameach.
And Hag Sameach, yes.
Yeah.
And eat lots of nice dried fruit.